my childhood best friend, and I invented a secret alien language when we were 8. 15 years later, it saved her life from traffickers in Brazil. When me and my girl best friend Maya were children, we invented a language that changed our lives forever. You see, we were obsessed with space movies, so we'd flash hand signals through our bedroom windows at night and created nonsense words for everything. Zorblax meant pretending I'm okay. Miefling meant I need help. Purple galaxies meant not alone. We used it all the time when our parents weren't paying attention, mainly to communicate things in private, but also because it made us feel special. My family moved across the country sophomore year of high school, and we slowly lost touch. By the time we were 22, we were nothing more than old friends. It was around this time that Maya went from never posting to posting every day. Stories, posts, everything. One had the caption, "Guys, I've met the most amazing local here in Brazil. He's showing me parts of the country tourists never see." And under normal circumstances, for a normal girl, this would have been fine. But these weren't normal circumstances, and she wasn't a normal girl, because she'd always told me that she never wanted to move out of state. She was a New Yorker through and through. The posts kept coming, multiple times a day, each one more enthusiastic. Can't believe how lucky I am. Some days I feel like I'm living my best Zorblax life. That's when my stomach dropped. Zorblax was our code word. It meant pretending I'm okay. At first, I tried to convince myself that Brazil was just making her a little quirky, but that night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. So at 3 a.m., when I still couldn't sleep, I grabbed my phone and stalked the shit out of her account. That's when I saw it. "This place has major Moon Whisper energy," appeared in 3 different captions. Moon Whisper meant I'm scared. All of her story highlight covers had the caption Miefling, meaning I need help. That's when it finally clicked. Someone was forcing her to post these updates, and she was using our childhood alien language to tell me she'd been kidnapped. I started commenting casually on her posts, trying to subtly tell her that I understood what she was saying, but I had no idea if she was even seeing them. So I turned on post notifications just to track her calls for help better. And with every post, her captions became more and more specific. "This reminds me of when we used to play astronauts," appeared under a beach photo. But we never played astronauts at the beach. We only played astronauts at Riverside Park. "Feeling like I'm 13 again," was in another caption. Maya was 13 when I came with her to visit her aunt in Rio for spring break. "Missing my collection of 23 Purple Galaxy stickers back home," she posted with a sunset photo. I read it over and over. Purple Galaxies meant not alone. But why was she specifying 23? Why mention stickers we never collected? Then it clicked. Riverside, Rio, 23. She was trying to tell me she was near a riverside in Rio, possibly at an address with the number 23. I thought about telling someone until I realized that the only evidence I had was a made-up alien language. So to avoid being locked up in a white room for the rest of my life, I called Maya's aunt in Rio. She recognized my voice instantly. I told her Maya was in trouble and possibly being held near the riverside area. "I felt God telling me something was wrong," was the first thing she said. You see, her aunt was very spiritual, which meant she didn't wave me off as a lunatic. We looked up every building numbered 23 along the water. There were only 3 possibilities. I maxed out my credit card on a flight to Rio. Maya's aunt picked me up at the airport, and we drove to each location. The first 2 were residential buildings. The third was an old warehouse that looked abandoned. We called the police from the car and told them we suspected kidnapped tourists were being held inside. I don't know if they believed us or if they just decided to check, but they went in. 20 minutes later, they brought out Maya and 4 other young women. Maya looked extremely pale and exhausted, but she was alive. I didn't even have time to hug her because the ambulance whisked her to the hospital straight away. But as me and her aunt followed the car, my phone buzzed. Maya had somehow posted one more time, just seconds ago. The caption was a single word in our alien language, Blaosh, the word that meant it's not over yet. I stared at my phone in the back of Maya's aunt's car. My hands were shaking. How the hell did she even post that? The police had just pulled her out of that warehouse. She didn't have her phone on her. I checked the post again. It was definitely from her account. The timestamp showed it was posted 2 minutes after they brought her out. My brain was racing. Someone else had access to her account. Someone who knew our language. But that was impossible. We made it up when we were 8 years old. Nobody else knew it. Maya's aunt kept praying in Portuguese while she drove. I couldn't understand the words, but I got the gist. She was thanking God and asking for protection. We got to the hospital, and they wouldn't let us see Maya right away. Said she needed to be examined first. The other women they rescued were in the same wing. I paced the waiting room for what felt like hours. Finally, a nurse came out and said we could see her. Maya was sitting up in bed with an IV in her arm. She looked so small. The second she saw me, her eyes filled with tears. I ran over and hugged her tight. She whispered something in my ear that made my blood run cold. "They have my sister." I pulled back and looked at her. Maya didn't have a sister. She was an only child, always had been. I'd known her since we were 6. She gave me this look that said play along, so I nodded like I understood. The nurse was still in the room checking Maya's vitals. Maya kept talking about how worried she was about her sister, how she hoped her sister was okay. The nurse finally left, and Maya grabbed my hand. "They're listening," she mouthed silently. I looked around the room. It seemed normal, just a hospital room, but Maya kept squeezing my hand in a pattern. 3 short, 3 long, 3 short, SOS. I got out my phone and opened the Notes app, typed out what's going on, and showed it to her. She took my phone and typed back, "The guy who took me has people everywhere. Hospital staff, police. He let us get rescued on purpose." Yes, my stomach dropped. I typed back, why? She typed for a long time. He runs a trafficking ring, uses tourists. When police get too close, he stages a rescue, makes it look like they saved everyone, but he keeps some girls hidden, uses them to control the ones who got out. I felt sick. Maya kept typing. He has my roommate from the warehouse. Said if I tell police anything real, he'll kill her. Said I have to go back to him in 48 hours or she dies. I wanted to scream. We just saved her and now she had to go back? Maya typed more. He knows about our language, has all my social media passwords, been watching my posts for months before he took me. That explained the Blayosh post. This guy was smart, too smart. Maya deleted everything she'd typed and handed my phone back. Then she said out loud that she was tired and needed rest. I got the hint. We couldn't talk freely here. I told her I'd come back tomorrow and left with her aunt. In the car, I tried to process everything. This wasn't over. Not even close. Some psycho had Maya's roommate and was using her as leverage. Maya had 48 hours before she had to go back to him, and he had people in the hospital and police force. We couldn't trust anyone. I asked Maya's aunt to drop me at my hotel. I needed to think, but when I got to my room, something felt off. My suitcase was in a different spot, just slightly, but I noticed. Someone had been in my room. I checked everything, but nothing was missing. That almost made it worse. They wanted me to know they'd been there. I deadbolted the door and shoved a chair under the handle. Then I sat on the bed and tried to figure out what to do. We had less than 2 days to save Maya's roommate and stop this guy, but we couldn't go to the police, couldn't trust the hospital. It was just me, Maya, and her aunt against some trafficking ring. I felt completely overwhelmed. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Stop interfering, or your friend pays the price. Then a photo. Maya's hospital room, taken from inside. Recent, because she was wearing the same hospital gown. These people were watching her right now. I wanted to throw my phone against the wall. Instead, I took a deep breath. Okay, think. What would Maya do? She'd already been smart enough to use our language to call for help. She'd found a way to communicate even when they were watching. I needed to be smart too. I texted back, I don't know what you're talking about. Playing dumb seemed safest. Another text came through. Leave Rio tomorrow or we have a problem. I stared at the message. They wanted me gone, which meant I was a threat to them somehow. Good. That meant we had a chance. I didn't sleep that night. Every noise in the hallway made me jump. The air conditioning unit rattled like someone trying to break in. Around 5 a.m. I gave up and started planning. If they wanted me gone, I'd make them think I was leaving. But I wasn't going anywhere without Maya. I booked a flight home for that afternoon, making sure to search for multiple options first, comparing prices loudly on the phone with a fake airline agent, really just dead air. Made sure to use the hotel Wi-Fi so they'd see it if they were monitoring. Then I packed my stuff loudly, making it obvious I was getting ready to leave. Slammed drawers, zipped suitcases with exaggerated force. But I also did something else. I messaged Maya's aunt and asked her to meet me at a cafe near the hospital, somewhere public, somewhere safe. She showed up looking exhausted, dark circles under her eyes that makeup couldn't hide. I could tell she hadn't slept either. Her hands shook as she lifted her coffee cup. I explained everything Maya had told me about the roommate and the 48-hour deadline. Her face went pale. She kept shaking her head and muttering prayers in Portuguese. Then she said something that surprised me. She knew a priest who helped trafficking victims, someone outside the system, someone we could trust. We met Father Carlos that morning at his church, a small stone building tucked between modern apartments. He was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with kind eyes and calloused hands. He listened to our story without interrupting, occasionally nodding or making notes in a small leather journal. When we finished, he nodded like none of this surprised him. He told us this wasn't the first time. The same group had been operating for years, moving like ghosts through Rio's underworld. They'd perfected their system, stage rescues to throw off police, keep leverage victims, rotate the girls between cities like merchandise. He said Maya's roommate was probably being held at a secondary location, somewhere the police didn't know about. The trafficking ring had several safe houses around Rio, scattered through favelas and industrial districts. Finding the right one would be nearly impossible, unless we had inside information, which we didn't. I felt hopeless again. We were running out of time and had no leads. The clock on the church wall seemed to mock us with each tick. Then Father Carlos said something that changed everything. He knew one of the girls who'd been rescued with Maya. She'd come to his church before, seeking sanctuary and solace. Maybe she'd seen or heard something useful. Her name was Ana. She was 19, from Colombia, with haunted eyes that looked much older. Father Carlos brought her to a back room of the church where we could talk privately. The room smelled of incense and old wood. She was terrified, flinching at every sound from the street, kept looking over her shoulder like someone might materialize from the shadows. But when we explained about Maya's roommate, her expression changed. She knew something. Ana told us the men had talked about a boat when they thought she was sleeping. Something about moving girls by water to avoid checkpoints. She'd heard them mention a marina through the thin walls of wherever they'd kept her. Marina de Gloria. Said they kept a yacht there for special cargo. My heart started racing. This was a real lead. But Ana also warned us, her voice dropping to barely a whisper. The man who ran everything was brutal. She'd seen what he did to girls who tried to escape. The screams still haunted her dreams. We couldn't just show up at the marina. We needed a plan, and we needed help. Real help. Not from police who might be compromised. Father Carlos made some calls on an old rotary phone that looked like it belonged in a museum. He had contacts, former military guys who now did private security, men who'd helped him before with trafficking victims. They agreed to check out the marina, just surveillance at first, see if the yacht was there, look for any signs of the operation. I went back to my my hotel to keep up appearances, made a big show of checking out, arguing with the desk clerk about the bill, demanding to speak to a manager, loaded my suitcase into a taxi with exaggerated difficulty. But instead of going to the airport, I had the driver take me to a different hotel across town, a dingy place that rented by the hour but asked no questions. Paid cash, registered under a fake name I'd seen in a movie once. If they were tracking me, maybe this would buy us time. That afternoon, Father Carlos called. His guys had found the yacht, a 60-footer called Paradise Dreams. The irony wasn't lost on me. They'd watched it for hours from different vantage points, saw men coming and going, young women being brought aboard under cover of darkness, never saw them leave. This had to be where they were keeping Maya's roommate. We met at the church again to plan. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows through stained glass windows. Father Carlos's security contacts, two guys named Rafael and Diego, laid out the situation. Rafael was tall and lean with military bearing. Diego was shorter, stockier, with scars that suggested a violent past. The yacht was in a secured part of the marina, guards at the gate checking IDs, cameras everywhere. Getting in would be tough. Getting out with a hostage would be tougher, but we didn't have a choice. The clock was ticking. Maya had less than 24 hours before her deadline. If we didn't get her roommate back, she'd have to return to these monsters. That wasn't happening. Not on my watch. Rafael had an idea. The marina had a restaurant that overlooked the docks, public access. We could get in there, scope out the yacht, maybe find a way to approach by water. It was risky, but better than trying to storm the gates like some action movie. That evening, I put on my nicest dress, a black number I'd packed for a fancy dinner that now seemed like a lifetime ago, and went to the marina restaurant with Diego. We pretended to be a couple on a date, got a table by the window with a clear view of the yacht. The maitre d' seemed suspicious, but a generous tip smoothed things over. I could see men on deck, big guys, definitely security. The boat was lit up like a Christmas tree, no way to approach without being seen. Then I noticed something. Every hour or so, the guards would go inside, shift change maybe, or just a break. But for about 10 minutes, the deck would be empty. It wasn't much, but it was something. I texted Rafael what I'd observed, trying to look like I was just checking Instagram. He said it might be enough. The plan was insane. Wait for the guard change. Have Rafael approach by water in a small boat. Board the yacht during the 10-minute window. Find the girls. Get them out before anyone noticed. So many things could go wrong, but we were out of options. We decided to move that night. Waiting longer just increased the chances of them moving the girls somewhere else. I wanted to go with Rafael, but everyone voted me down. Said I'd just be in the way. They were probably right. I didn't know how to fight or handle weapons. My job was to wait at the church with Father Carlos and Maya's aunt. Those were the longest hours of my life. We sat in the church office, praying and checking our phones every 2 minutes. The old clock on the wall ticked so loudly it felt like a countdown. Rafael was supposed to text when they had the girls. Midnight came and went. Nothing. 12:30. Still nothing. I was starting to panic. Finally, at 1 a.m., my phone buzzed. But it wasn't from Rafael. It was from the unknown number again. Nice try. Your friend has 6 hours to return or her roommate dies. My heart sank. They knew. Somehow they knew about our rescue attempt. 2 minutes later, Rafael called. They'd gotten aboard the yacht, but it was empty. No girls, no guards, nothing. Just the lingering smell of perfume and fear. It had been a trap. Or maybe they'd moved everyone when they realized we were onto them. Either way, we'd failed. I felt sick. We'd made things worse. Now they knew we were actively working against them. They'd be more careful. Maybe hurt Maya's roommate to prove a point. I wanted to scream. Father Carlos tried to comfort me, but I was beyond comfort. Then Maya's aunt said something that made me think. She asked why they gave Maya 6 more hours. Why not just call the roommate immediately? Why give us another deadline? It didn't make sense unless they needed Maya for something specific. I called Rafael back, asked him to describe everything about the yacht. He said it looked lived in. Food in the galley, clothes in the cabins, but something was off. Too neat, like someone had cleaned up in a hurry. And he'd found something strange. A bunch of tourist visas, all for young women, all with departure dates in the next few days. That's when it clicked. They weren't just trafficking girls. They were moving them out of the country. And they needed Maya to make it look legitimate. She was American. Clean record. Perfect cover for traveling with a group of friends. That's why they couldn't just call her roommate. They needed Maya cooperative. This changed everything. If we were right, they'd have to surface soon. Airports have security, passenger manifests. They'd have to use real identities. We finally had a pressure point, but we still didn't know where they were holding the girls now. Maya's aunt remembered something. When Maya was first missing, she'd tried to track her phone. It had pinged at a few locations around Rio before going dark. One was near the old port district, an area full of warehouses and industrial buildings, just like where they'd found Maya. It was thin, but it was all we had. Rafael and Diego agreed to check it out, but this time, we'd be smarter. No rushing in, just reconnaissance. Find out if anyone was there, report back, make a real plan. I couldn't just sit and wait again. I convinced them to let me come, not to the warehouse, but close by. I'd wait in the car with Maya's aunt. If something went wrong, we'd be backup, or at least witnesses. The port district at night was creepy as hell. Empty streets, broken streetlights casting pools of darkness. The kind of place where bad things happened and nobody asked questions. Rafael and Diego went on foot to scout. We parked a few blocks away and waited. 20 minutes later, Rafael texted. Found something. Multiple guards. Looks active. My heart started pounding. This could be it. But we couldn't just charge in. Not with armed guards. We needed help. Real help. That's when I did something either really smart or really stupid. I called the FBI field office in Rio. Yeah, I know. Crazy. But these were American citizens being trafficked. That made it federal, and the FBI wouldn't be compromised like local cops might be. The agent who answered sounded bored until I mentioned American victims and trafficking. Then he got very interested, said they'd been tracking similar cases, asked for my location. I hesitated. What if this was a mistake? What if the traffickers had people there too? But we were out of time. Maya's deadline was in 3 hours. Her roommate would die if we didn't do something. So I gave them the address, told them about the warehouse, the guards, the whole situation. The agent said to stay put. They'd handle it. But he also said something that made me nervous. We'll need to coordinate with local authorities. This could take a few hours to set up properly. I explained we didn't have hours. Lives were at stake. He said he understood, but there were protocols. International operations required approvals, paperwork, coordination. I wanted to scream. While they were filing paperwork, Maya's roommate could be dying, but arguing wouldn't help. I thanked him and hung up. Then I made another call, this time to Agent William Chen, the FBI liaison I'd met at the embassy weeks earlier when I'd first arrived and tried to report Maya missing. He'd given me his card, said to call if anything developed. Well, this definitely qualified as a development. Chen answered on the second ring despite the late hour. When I explained the situation, his tone changed completely. You're at the port district now? He asked, with visual confirmation of the warehouse. I said yes. He told me to text him the exact address and stay put. Unlike the field office, he didn't mention protocols or paperwork. 20 minutes later, vehicles started arriving. Not marked police cars, but black SUVs with government plates. Agents in tactical gear emerged, moving with practiced efficiency. Chen must have pulled serious strings to mobilize this fast. Rafael and Diego came back to our car. We all watched from a distance as the agents surrounded the warehouse. Chen appeared at our window, wearing a bulletproof vest over his suit. You three need to leave. Now this could get messy. We didn't argue. As Maya's aunt drove us away, we heard the first sounds of the raid, shouting, flashbang grenades, then gunfire. A lot of gunfire. I grabbed Maya's aunt's hand, and we both prayed. This had to work. It just had to. We drove to Father Carlos's church to wait. He was still awake, praying in the sanctuary. We joined him, sitting in the wooden pews as sirens wailed in the distance. An hour passed, then 2. Finally, my phone rang. It was Chen. We got them. 12 women, all alive, including an American matching your description of Maya's roommate. I nearly collapsed with relief, but Chen wasn't done. We also got Roberto Silva. He was there, trying to move the girls before dawn. Silva. The name meant nothing to me then, but it would soon become burned into my memory. The monster who'd orchestrated everything. At the FBI building, everything was chaos. Agents running around, phones ringing, people yelling in English and Portuguese. They put us in a conference room and said someone would be with us soon. Through the window, I saw them bringing in the rescued women. They looked shell-shocked, wrapped in blankets, some crying, others just staring blankly. Then I saw her, a blonde girl about Maya's age being helped by 2 agents. She was looking around frantically, asking something. The agents were shaking their heads. I knew instinctively this was Sarah, Maya's roommate. She was looking for Maya, making sure her friend was safe even in the middle of her own rescue. Finally, Chen came to brief us. The raid had been a complete success. All 12 women rescued unharmed. 6 traffickers arrested, including Silva. They'd also seized computers, phones, documents, evidence that would expose the entire network. Silva's been on our radar for months, Chen explained. We knew he was involved in trafficking but couldn't prove it. He was too careful, too connected. Your information gave us the probable cause we needed. He showed me a photo, asked if I recognized the man. Roberto Silva looked like a businessman. Expensive suit, manicured hands, the kind of face you'd trust, the kind of monster who hid in plain sight. Maya's aunt gasped when she saw him. She knew him. He owned several legitimate businesses in Rio, restaurants, clubs, perfect fronts for moving girls around. Can I see Sarah? I asked. Maya's roommate? Chen hesitated. She's being debriefed, but she's asking about Maya too. Keep saying Maya saved her life. Taught her some kind of code language? I explained about our alien language, how Maya must have taught it to Sarah in captivity. Chen's expression changed. That's how you knew Maya was in trouble? Through coded messages? I nodded. He left the room and came back with another agent. They wanted to know everything about the language, every word, every signal, how we'd developed it, how Maya had used it. I spent the next hour teaching FBI agents our childhood alien language. Under different circumstances, it might have been funny, but knowing it had saved lives made it feel profound. They let me call Maya from a secure line. She was still at the hospital under federal protection. When I told her Sarah was safe, she broke down crying. I taught her our words, she said, so she'd have hope, so she'd know someone would understand if she got the chance to use them. The next few days were a blur. Federal protection for Maya and Sarah. Endless interviews and statements. The FBI found more victims through Silva's records. Some had been trafficked years ago. Others were about to be moved. Silva's operation was massive, international, connected to similar rings in Colombia, Venezuela, Argentina, but they'd been sloppy, kept records, names, dates, transactions. The FBI had everything they needed. Silva tried to flee, but made it only as far as the airport. They arrested him trying to board a private jet to Paraguay. No bail, no deals. He was looking at life in prison. Maya was released from the hospital into federal protection. They moved her and Sarah to a safe house. I was allowed to visit once they cleared me. Seeing them together was surreal. These 2 women who'd been through hell, bonded by trauma, but also by survival, and by our silly alien language. Sarah told us how Maya had kept her sane in captivity, how she'd taught her the words late at night when the guards weren't paying attention. Simple phrases at first, then more complex ideas, a whole system of communication their captors couldn't understand. She told me someone would recognize the words, Sarah said, that her best friend would see them and know. I thought she was delusional at first, but she was so certain, it gave me hope. The trial took months to prepare. The FBI built their case methodically. Financial records, property deeds, witness testimony. They traced Silva's network across South America. Dozens of arrests followed. Each one led to more evidence, more victims saved. Maya and Sarah had to testify, relive their nightmare in court. I was there every day, watching them be so brave, so strong, telling their stories without flinching, making sure the jury understood exactly what Silva had done. Silva's lawyers tried everything, said the women were willing participants, that it was all consensual, that Maya and Sarah were lying for attention or money. But the evidence was overwhelming, and Maya and Sarah had something Silva didn't expect. They had each other, they had proof, and they had our language. I testified too, explained how I'd recognized Maya's coded messages, how we'd developed the language as children, how Maya had used it to call for help, how she'd taught it to Sarah. The jury was fascinated. Several members were visibly moved. The defense tried to dismiss it as coincidence, said we were reading meaning into random words. But when Maya and Sarah demonstrated the language in court, showing how complex and consistent it was, that argument fell apart. It took the jury less than 2 hours. Guilty on all counts. Silva got life without parole. His network was dismantled. Properties seized. Accounts frozen. The FBI estimated they'd saved over 100 women from future trafficking. It was a huge victory.